Good morning. A BBC report posted from Lagos desk says President Muhammadu Buhari is to operate from home because rats infested his office in Aso Rock. And the media spokesperson says that the office will be renovated and that the president's house is equipped with an office which is capable of taking care of the president's his function as the president of Nigeria. Wow. In my Punch days, we call news items like that hocus pocus. Obama was fond of using the phrase hocus pocus too, meaning that it's diversion. Can you imagine a whole country, big size of Nigeria, 170 million people? We don't even know how many we are. Could be more than that. For rodents, wow, to take over while the president was away undergoing medical treatment in London. The headquarters of our oppressors, the colonizers, for 3 months. Shameful. We couldn't have specialist hospitals in Ife, in Zaria, in Enugu, in Ibadan, in Lagos to take care of our head of state. He's the number one head. I use the word head of state. That's what they used to call themselves when they take over the government in a military fashion. Head of state. He was a head of state before, between 83 and let's say 84/85. Now president, people's president. While he was away, the aides could not take care of his office. What kind of government do we have in Nigeria? Then Nigerians at home will turn around to be lambasting people like us over here in the diaspora that we don't count. It's okay, but we are laughing stock to the rest of the world. Can you imagine a president being away and for rodents to take over? That reminds me of Awolowo while he was incarcerated by the cabals of Nigeria. His followers were very upset, and I think Ike Dairo came up with a song about the head of the family who was away on a trip, and while he was away, the house became infested with rodents. Permit me to voice out or to sing Ike Dairo's song. Hmm. Well, I'm not in a singing mood, but it's all about the head of the family being away and rodents, ekute, the house become that of ekute, the rodents, the rats, the rabbits. Quite shameful. That's that. I leave that as that. Also, he came on Saturday, according to a report, just this last week Saturday. But then we got reports from our Ife desk, the correspondent, saying that before she traveled to London way last week or way before the last, that Buhari arrived in Nigeria. We call this kind of correspondent as a reliable source. We had no reason to think that she would come up with fake news. And also another gentleman up the street from USAV establishment, who was in Nigeria, who was also monitoring Nigeria through cable, confirmed that the president came back probably a week before we were made to understand that he arrived. In a Nigerian forum yesterday, I raised the issue, and forumites knocked it down that we were kind of naive, and then we called ourselves journalists. We believe stuff like that. No, this is not a question of believing or not believing the veracity of the report. We're just throwing it out there as a kind of research, looking deeper into the buffoonery going on in our nation. That's all. People deceive people all the time. You know, these politicians, they come up with all kinds of wild stuff. Anyhow, we can leave that aside. You can make up your mind, or you can address the issue if you have any new information for us as to the date of arrival, whether he was back a week before we were all made to understand that he came back, and that he was going to address us on Monday, day before yesterday, which he did. That's a fact. And we can now talk and debate the content of the speech. I know that some members of FHF felt that or expressed the feeling that the speech was devoid of substance. I read it, and my own interpretation was that the president touched on some of our concerns as related to restructuring and the lopsidedness of Nigeria's polity, which is not right. I dug deeper and came up with ran into a Punch editorials of this morning or yesterday morning, spelling out how Nigeria is so lopsided. North is getting the big numbers in terms of control of the Senate. They have more votes over there, and in terms of the House of Rep, everything is cooled in their favor. And I think that the president himself alluded to this lopsidedness, and that made Buhari appear a listening president. That was okay. And the fact that he was here ambulanced to London for medical treatment. That was a slap too on our national psyche. It's a slap, it's a dirty slap that we don't have competent medical facilities right there in Abuja to take care of our headache of our president. When the head is sick, the whole body, we are all sick, including me too. As a matter of fact, that's why I'm exercising, because my sympathy went with the president, because anybody can fall sick. Though we don't know the nature of his sickness, it will be enlightening to know what he's suffering from, so that we too can check our doctor to see what we're suffering, whether we are suffering from similar ailment. It's good for national enlightenment, for our leaders to always speak truth to power. So that's that. In the forum, at that forum yesterday, we discussed this lopsidedness and how Lagos on VAT gets probably 50% of taxes coming into the government, and then allocation to Lagos State is not in pari passu with that of Kano and Jigawa. As I understand, Jigawa was carved out of Kano State. Kano State right now got more votes, got more representatives than Lagos, that is teeming with Nigeria's population. Almost every group is represented in Lagos. I mean, that's injustice, and as long as things are not balanced, people will be agitating for Biafranization of Nigeria, Odudualizing Nigeria, or Arewalizing it. So it's left to the powers that be to do the right thing. People who are languishing abroad, they don't really want to be languishing over here. They want to be in Africa, in Nigeria, where the action is, so that everybody can contribute his or her own quota. But when you read sordid news items like this, where things are not, being done right, you want to tally a little. Although that might be another cop out, just like the youth using the old has been responsible for their own sordidness. They're saying that the old will not yield power to them. But my reaction is that we need youths like Obama, who was thinking outside the box and challenged the whole American system. A son or a descendant of a slave, or not a slave, but actually a foreigner, but then his father was kind of black from Kenya, to make it to the White House. That's heavy. It was never done before, because Obama, after writing a couple of books, including some kind of the narratives of his father, he started making an impact. So if you are 35, 39, you can do better than the Buhari'S school of thoughts. So Nigeria belongs to everybody. Though the thank gods, they may think that they are all that, but when you look into it, they're not all that. Everybody has come to conclusion that the leaders are nothing but misleaders. Everybody is aware that all they do is steal people's money. It's not right. You cannot be stealing people's money, funds, and be going on a profligate adventures all over the world, and you think you're gonna hand any respect with that? No. Everybody all hands must be on deck. Let us condemn the condemnable. I remember 97 when Onishi was in Washington, D.C. Our magazine, the U.S. African Voice, a team of Regina and I went to interview him. He was gracious and challenged us that we should be united, and invited me to follow his entourage that included the Emir of Kano, Alhaji Adobayero. We followed the entourage. Getting to Baltimore, they went straight to Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins Hospital, the best in the world. At least that's the way Baltimoreans will present Johns Hopkins to you. You can Google it and to see the ranking globally. So we called Johns Hopkins, or when I got there, asking for Onishi Juade, the name was not on the list. Maybe for safety reason or for privacy reason. We asked for Adobayero. They said no, not on the list. Days later, I got a call from Bawoniji Agbaye, Oba Fatumise from the source, who acknowledged that the Oni was sick. Then 2 years ago, when he fell sick, he had to be air ambulanced to London. It's just like this Buhari scenario. It doesn't make us look good at all to the rest of the world that a country that got its or her independence in 1960 does not have a great teaching hospital that can take care of any imaginable ailment. As a matter of fact, as a question of pride, our leaders, our presidents, our kings should be proud enough to say, no, I want to receive medication here in Nigeria. I want to receive treatment here in Nigeria. After all, the end is always the same. Anyway, Oni Shijuade was airlifted or air ambulance to London. In the end, he didn't make it. And then they would turn around to say, okay, the king died, the king didn't die. Then we would debate that, maybe probably for a couple of weeks before the truth finally will come in the open. Now we are reading that our president will soon be traveling back to London. It doesn't read right. It doesn't sound right. We are in deep shit. We are in deep trouble. And I'm outraged. I'm disgusted. You are also free to speak out as to the way you are taking all these things. Whether you speak the truth or you don't speak the truth, you go die too. Just like that guy in the Senate said, àjẹkù ìyà ni ó jẹ, àjẹkù ìyà ni ó jẹ, ẹni tí ò tó ní nà tó ń dè ní nà dé ní, àjẹkù ìyà ni ó jẹ. We're not trying to fight any powerful people, because we know that they got all the power, and plus their minions are out there ready to kill for their baba. Baba says this, Baba says that. On that note, I will advise the youth to start thinking ahead, figuring out how they can use their intellectual power, whatever power they got, to liberate the country from the clutch of the oppressors. I rest my case. You free to tell me where I goofed or where you agreed with me. I'm not perfect. I'm just human like you. And we all have equal voice. Thank you. And God bless.